So welcome back. So we in the last lecture we apprised the first 5-year plan and second 5-year plan. Now we are going towards a quite volatile situation. In the third 5-year plan, we really had an interesting phase where we were facing an unprecedented situation from our neighboring countries, and as a result we had to resort to a different set of planning process. We had to drop the idea, we had to discontinue the planning process for certain years, that we call it as plan holiday, and in the period was from 1966 to 1969. So here it was the third 5-year plan. Plan was from 1961 to 1966, and this plan also helped a lot in terms of understanding the I would say growth process of India's economy. So second 5-year plan, whatever we had in terms of heavy industrialization, it helped continue the high growth path, and unfortunately it was interrupted by the wars with China and Pakistan. And at that time, since second 5-year plan did not pay that much attention to agriculture, and due to bad monsoon, we had a severe drought situation in certain parts of the country, especially in Bihar. The drought situation was so intense that there were, at least the death rate had gone up, and the food shortage was really high. So at that point of time, even India had a tough time to negotiate with the US and the IMF and the World Bank to give at least some support, and given the external situation that we had, it was really difficult to procure that support also. So that's why this particular period became really a challenging period for policy makers. So India faced severe drought, major shortage of food was reported in Bihar. So the death rate in Bihar had gone up by 34% or so. So the third 5-year plan had the target rate of 5.6%, but it was again a failure, and it achieved the growth rate of only 2.4%. And that was not because we were not capable of doing, but because circumstances were not that favorable, and even the domestic economic setup that we had, it was not very good. So the war ultimately had an impact on the budget allocation of different sectors, and as a result the agriculture, even manufacturing and certain other sectors were also not doing good. And the third 5-year plan is also is known for its landmark achievement in terms of agriculture, that this was the process when MS Swaminathan and Norman Borlaug came together, and then they envisioned the green revolution in the country to make India self-reliant on food production. And then at that point of time, because of the excess distribution of high yielding varieties of seeds, the green revolution took off, and it also created a lot of buzz in the different parts of the country in terms of growing inequalities. But keeping that aside, third 5-year plan also gave special emphasis on agriculture, especially food production. One important note that everyone asked in most of the exams, that when India had to go for a planned holiday. So it was a period when we were facing extreme situation, 1966 to 69. So this was the period when we call it as planned holiday. So in agriculture, high yielding varieties were introduced in 1963, and this led to in certain part of especially Punjab, Haryana and western part of the Uttar Pradesh, these HYVs were distributed, and this particular region became prosperous in terms of high yield and in terms of productivity, which means that the agriculture productivity had gone up. So production of wheat and paddy increased due to adoption of Mexican varieties wheat and Taichung native one of paddy in 1965. So these two varieties were quite popular at that time, and especially in Mexican varieties there were the different others, and it really helped in India to come out from the food shortage. And then the focus was completely shifted to agriculture, to industry and the services and other sectors. One of the important development that also took place was the setting up of the regulatory framework, regulatory architecture for the agriculture sector. So, certain bodies were set up, for example, agro industries corporation in every state, then there was the cooperative development corporation, then the national seeds corporation. So, these corporations helped in smoothing the process of agriculture development in the country, and this helped a lot in terms of not only making the country self-reliant in terms of food grain production, but also making I would say rural areas more prosperous. So, that is why the third plan is more known for such contributions, but at the same time third plan is also known for a drought that was felt in certain part of the country very acutely, and that is why it is also important to note. If we stop here for one moment and if we try and see that how we can simply understand the, or we can go for some kind of appraisal of first 3 5-year plans, then we find that first plan had focused on the capacity, second plan had set the framework for, or it had laid down the industrialization process. The third plan focused mostly on the agriculture capacities, food grain production, and it had, so first and second had ignored the agriculture sector, and the importance were given to industries. Some thinkers were of the view that rural industrialization, even keeping agriculture as the main agenda. So, after that there were political development. So, the political parties and politicians affiliated to agriculture sector, they also came in power, and then they also emphasized more on the agriculture sector because of the second 5-year plan impact. So, second 5-year plan is known for that. So, third 5-year plan completely gave the reason to enjoy the rise of agriculture sector as a self-sufficient sector in terms of food planning process, right. Now, fourth 5-year plan was introduced in 1969, and it was, the duration was from 1969 to 74. The fourth 5-year plan also had a surprising development, because then at that time there was a Pakistan controversy and the creation of Bangladesh, and then we had a war with Pakistan at that time also. Then we had OPEC oil embargo. Under that we had to import the crude oil at a higher price. As a result, the import cost went up, and then we had to pay a lot in terms of foreign exchange. So, that was also one outflow that we had to see just because of these disturbances. And one major thing that had happened, which was very positive for the country development, was the nationalization of banks, because nationalization of banks was one of the important things. On 19 July 1969, 14 major banks were nationalized. So, what happened that after independence, when we look at the banking sector, then we find that in the banking sector we had almost more than 470 banks operating in different sectors, and most of these banks were quite fragmented. And to implement the planning process, which is at the national level, government wanted some dedicated institutions to support, and they were not very confident with the way these banks were functioning. So, business houses had personal banks, they were more interested in giving loans to their relatives and the known people compared to the common and commoners. So, as a result, government had to think about how they have to support this planning process when you have the commitment of achieving the growth rate of more than 5%. So, as a result, we saw that on 19 July 1969, 14 major banks with deposits of rupees 50 crores were nationalized. So, we had Punjab National Banks, and all those banks were nationalized, but it was all with the setting off of the RBI and then the SBI, and then it continued. But these 14 major banks played a really instrumental role in implementing the planning process quite efficiently and supporting or providing support in terms of credit support, not for just from the perspective of investment, also from the household side. So, these banks helped, and then as I mentioned that we had India-Pakistan war of 1971, then subsequently we had creation of Bangladesh, and then here also the total growth rate that we had, the overall growth rate, 5 years growth rate that we achieved during this period was 3.5%, which was lower than the target rate of growth of 5.5%. So this particular exercise helps understand that how we can understand the fourth 5-year plan. India also took measures to regulate and restrict exit entry and even check the market dominant strategy. So as we mentioned that the industrial policy resolution that we had a 1948 and 56, and then in 56 also we allowed certain sectors only for the public, and then the licensing norms were introduced. Now this particular exercise gave rise to what we have, the licensing Raj, and then there were certain firms which had complete dominance, and there was some kind of monopolistic structure, oligopolistic structure, formation of cartels. Then there was some kind of leadership role in certain sectors. The businessmen which were quite powerful, they had a say in a particular sector. Even public sectors firms were not shying in terms of taking advantage with the dominance of the market. So at that point of time, on December 18, 1969, Indian Parliament passed the law on Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, which is called MRTP Act, and it was implemented on June 1, 1970. So the MRTP Act has a special I would say status in India's industrialization process, because this particular act gave rise to lot of I would say it is called red tapeism, and again it is called in terms of rent seeking, that this particular MRTP Act again gave a rise of different or alternative set of firms operating in a quite unusual manner. Right. So the Dutt committee had recommended that, and it submitted the report which was titled as Industrial Licensing Policy Inquiry Committee, and this committee recommended that there should be a complete control on and check on the entry exit of firms, and then whether the firms are opting a fair market strategy or not. Is there any kind of predatory pricing happening? The main objective was to check on the market concentration, whether the particular sector is operated by only one particular firm, or it is or there are large number of firms operating. Control of monopolies, whether there is a single firm dominating, or even monopolistic and restrictive trade practices. So monopolistic in the sense that if you have some small number of firms participating with the differentiated product. Now the MRTP Act created worse than good for industrial development, as more and more firms seemed reluctant to participate in the market, and then the investment process was also slowed because it was very difficult to participate. So most of the firms which were relying on the import from or import of input from outside, even the import of technology, it was not easy. So that's why the services sector firms, if you go through the history, you find that most of the services sector firms, they report that it was very difficult for them to compete. It also ushered the era of red tapeism, normally used for rent seeking activities, where there is a collusion between a firm and the politician. Or the bureaucrat. If the bureaucrat is giving extra favor, then firms also in return give extra favor, and there is some kind of collusion happening. So that we always mention in terms of political connection of firms. So politically connected firms. So those firms which were politically connected, they had a complete say in the market dominance, even restrictive trade practices. The proponents argued that MRTP Act was needed because of widespread practices of monopoly and product concentration. In certain areas, in certain segments, the firms were producing a certain amount of product, but with a certain change of labeling, they were participating in other markets also, and as a result the domestic market in different parts of the countries were completely dominated by a particular set of firms. So MRTP Act was not also successful in terms of restricting the in a good sense in terms of market development. It basically helped the large firms to dominate. Large business houses had the disproportionate share in the operational licenses, and it had even controlled the market through firms and their control, which means that these large firms, basically big business houses, had a complete say in terms of tractor, in terms of you have a whole lot of automobile sectors. So this particular MRTP Act also gave rise to this. Even In 1965, before the implementation of this MRTP Act, Monopolies Inquiry Commission in 1965 reported the excessive practices of monopoly and oligopolistic market structure. Oligopolistic market structure means a small number of firms participating. Now, the commission found that out of 1298 products produced at that point of time, almost 88% firms were oligopolists. 437 were monopolists, which means only one seller, and 229 duopolies, means two sellers, right. So, this shows the distribution of market at that point of time, and that is why MRTP Act was needed. Lately in 2009, MRTP Act was repealed and it was replaced by the Competition Commission Act of 2002. Now, in India we have a Competition Commission of India to look after such differences with respect to market dominance, monopolies and trade and monopolies and restrictive trade practices. In the modern era, in the contemporary context, the Competition Commission of India looks after such kind of market violations, where if a firm finds that the competitors are not following certain market regulatory norms, then they can report to Competition Commission of India. Competition Commission of India then tries to go through in detail and report it to the appellate tribunal. Appellate tribunal again takes it into consideration and it imposes certain fines or whatever the decisions are being taken. So, the CCI is now a popular institution in India to take into account. You may be reading in newspapers that how DLF was fined, how a National Stock Exchange was not following the norms of market, and how MCX sued the National Stock Exchange for not following in the forex derivatives market. So, those are the important details that that is one I wanted to share with this particular exercise, that we are offering a course on Indian economy. The fifth 5-year plan, which was from 1974 to 1979, was a successful plan because it also focused more on the social distribution and the self-reliance. As I mentioned, that self-reliance was more to do with the agriculture because we were sufficient in food grain. The plan was a success because fifth 5-year plan achieved the growth rate of 5.7% compared to what we have 5.2%. During this period, the foundation of first and second 5-year plans were started reflecting. So, whatever foundations that were laid down, in the fruits of that we started seeing, and it yielded in a higher rate of growth that we see. India became a self-sufficient country in food production with the capacity of 118 million tons. So, this became really an important contributions in terms of how we can think about a self-reliance that we have in terms of food production. Exports also increased by 15%, and India also had forex reserves going up, and we had a good amount of foreign investment coming in. So, overall it looks that by fifth 5-year plan we start, despite being we had to face war and we had unprecedented wars with Pakistan, and then we had with China. Despite those disturbances, then oil embargo of 1973, despite these challenges, India is still able to achieve a higher growth, and it registered a growth rate of 5.7% in fifth 5-year plan. The fifth 5-year plan was also successful. It focused more on social distribution. The critics also blamed the planning as a failure in containing, and the inflation went up by 30%, and this was because of the oil in terms of crude oil embargo that we had to see, and that is why we had seen the increase in our import bill. Import bill went up by 53%. At that time we had a non-Nehru government, so it was Janata Party government, and Janata Party government worked a lot in terms of improving the infrastructure and then also giving more weightage to small scale industries. So, this particular government is known for that. At the same time, this government is also known for introducing the something called rolling plan. So, that is also one important topic that is often asked to the students when they prepare for any kind of exams and all. So, in case of India, the inflation which resulted in the higher deficits because if you have higher inflation, you are supposed to pay a higher allowance to, or a higher allowance to the employees. So most of the employees had to be compensated by certain increase in DRS allowance. As a result, this puts extra burden on the exchequer, and as a result, we have a higher deficit. So this high inflation also resulted in higher deficit during this period. But at that time, there was again political turmoil happening around, because this particular government was not able to complete its term, and then there was a change of guard, and this resulted in the overall lot of upheavals in the political setup. But on economic front, the economy was able to at least sail through the whatever we had seen the disturbance of 1973. Before the completion of the fifth plan, 1974 to 1979, the plan was discontinued, and then the rolling plan was introduced. So India adopted the rolling plan, which continued 1978. It was planned that it will continue till 1990, but then there was change in government. Mrs. Indira Gandhi took over, and then she discontinued the plan immediately. It was adopted by the Janata Party government. Under this, we had three types of planning. One was immediate, 1 year budget or 1 year plan, then 3, 5 to 10, which is the medium, and the long term 10, 15, 20 years. And the idea was that there will not be any kind of starting and ending point of the planning, it will just roll over. So once a period finishes, it will again go to the medium term and then the long term. So the idea was good, because we had no botheration about how much rate of growth we are going to achieve in a particular plan, but at the same time there was a continuous planning process working, and it was thought that this rolling plan idea will help. The rolling plan was stopped in 1980 by the re-elected Congress government, and sixth 5-year plan was launched. So this particular exercise also gives the idea that in India's history, apart from the plan holiday that we had from 1966 to 1969, we also had to adopt the rolling plan, and then it also continued only for 2 years, because in 1980 the then elected government had discontinued and introduced the sixth plan. The sixth plan and the seventh plan that we have from 1980-85 and to 1985 and 90, these two plans have a special place in India's economic history, because these two plans gave rise to what we call the economic liberalization process. How economic liberalization process helped the economy to move from what we had, the regulated economy, licensing based economy, to the market oriented economy. And 6th 5-year plan had the target growth rate of 5.2%, and achievement was higher, it was 5.7%, which means that this plan had really done well. So the growth target was 5.2% and achievement was 5.7%. The seventh plan also achieved it also did well in terms of achieving the growth rate. So it achieved the growth rate of 6.01% against the target of 5%. So there was a 1% increase. So in terms of sixth and seventh plan, if we compare, then we find that these two plans were successful, and this could be because the foundations that were laid down in first, second, third and the previous plans, it helped these plans to continue on those enhanced capacities in production and in terms of supply chain. Now during the period of 1985 to 1990, several measures of economic liberalization were undertaken in terms of certain norms of MRTP Act were relaxed, and some industries were allowed to participate. And if the firms are operating in backward areas, if they set up activities in backward areas, then they will be given incentives. Incentives were also given under the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, FERA Act, which means that how this particular act helped these sectors to grow, right. Now if you compare in terms of the major liberalization measures of 1985-1990, then we find that the seeds of economic liberalization were sown in the 1985 periods only, and at that time the Indira Gandhi government had to take support from other parties, left-leaning parties, and even the socialist parties, and that's why it was done very silently, without without so much of noise. So in March 1985, 25 broad categories of industries, including 82 bulk drugs formulations, were dedicated. So here I will stop now, and I will try to tell you that whatever we have analyzed so far, it gives the idea that we are now in a very comfortable stage, and we can say that we know something about India's economic history, how painful it was for the country to move from the perpetuation of underdevelopment to a slightly better position. And in the next lecture we will be covering some other aspects, and we will continue with this, and then we will also moving towards the post reform period. So pre-reform period we will also try to see on aspects of economic liberalization. Thank you so much.